our job a lot easier.
So, guys, welcome to the Leicester Space Centre. I hope you're having a good day. Well, I think everybody here is really pleased to see you all. I'm just going to get the ball rolling. I'll get to your questions in 1 second. Can I just ask you guys, what made you want to get into acting, and what was the journey leading up to you guys getting into Doctor Who, please?
Well, I wanted to be... Hello, am I switched on or off?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Oh, you can hear me anyway without it. I wanted to be the Pope, so that's how I got into acting.
It's true.
Yeah. Now, when I was young, I grew up in the Highlands of Scotland. We didn't have much theatre, but coming from an Irish Catholic background, we used to go to church every Sunday, and that was theatre in its own right, really. And I thought, that guy standing up there has got a great costume. And also, you know, people are all sitting there listening to him. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And so they said, well, you have to become a priest. And so I set off to become a priest, and then decided I would become a monk. And so I set off to become a monk, and then on the way back home to wait to become a monk, they sent a letter saying, oh, you're 17, you have to be 18 to be a monk. So then I went to my local school, and there was only one in the Highlands around that part of the Highlands called the Noon Grammar School, and I went there, and it was a mixed sex school, and I discovered very quickly decided rather than wear a skirt, I'd chase it instead. But I still wanted to be an actor and wear a costume, and that was my driving force to get dressed up as a pope.
None of us can top that.
So,
Yeah, well, I just loved acting when I was little. I can't remember going to see any play or any particular influence, but I was, and probably you would say I still am, quite bossy. So I used to put on plays when I was about 5, written by, starring and directed by Sophie Aldred, and I used to get all the neighbourhood children to come and be in it, even though they were much older than me, and my brother always had to be in them, as he was usually the cook, and I was the handsome prince, always. I had to be this handsome prince, with this little kind of satin shirt from the dressing up box and a little velvet red cap, and then I remember we used to do these plays and charge 6D, which shows how old I am, for people to come and watch, and the parents all came and watched. And then we collected the money in an old biscuit tin, and we collected up the money and sent it into Blue Peter for the Blue Peter appeals, you know, they used to do. And that's how it started, really. And then at school I just carried on. I loved making up my own plays or adapting stories. So I'm a huge fan of the Just William books, and I adapted the Just William stories. Guess who played Just William? And,
you must have been shocked when you came to puberty.
well, yes, I was. My mum said when I was, let's see, I was probably 14, and no, 13, and somebody
You're
left.
sure about that?
Yeah.
You're maybe so precise.
Yeah, I was 13.
13 and a half and 3/4.
I was 13 and a half. And we got back from a weekend away, and on the doorstep was this great big envelope, and it was addressed to me, and I opened it up, and it was a huge Valentine's card from, well, I hoped it was from a boy in the church choir that I sang in. And my mum said that overnight I turned from a tomboy into a girl, and started.
Just William into
Yeah.
Wilhelmina.
Yes, exactly.
So that's
Yeah, that's how it was, really. Not quite, no, not quite that far. Yeah, what's that noise? This is exciting.
This is the Space
Take
Centre.
off.
it's just a spaceship taking off.
Fantastic. So yeah.
I'm apparently right. I wanted to be an actor without words, otherwise known as a ballet dancer. So I wanted to be Margot Fontaine, and I wanted to do all those wonderful longing expressions. And that's probably because my mother was deaf. So if I'd gone to do plays, she wouldn't have heard anything I was doing. So I wanted to express stories But I didn't get on very well in ballet school in terms of what I wanted to do and what they wanted me to do, because you know, pretty little girls are meant to be berries and petals, and I wanted to be, you know, a frog-eating gorilla tree or something.
Lots of those in ballet.
Lots,
Yeah.
and they were kind of like, don't you think you'd be better being a raindrop? No, I'm going to be the frog-eating gorilla tree. I'll be the tree and his stomach and his mouth and the little frog, and then the, you know. So it was a bit, I didn't sort of fit in with that. But I loved the ballet, I loved doing it, and I hoped I was going to play all these characters. But, and my father, who thought this was the silliest career on the planet, said, oh, well, let her audition for all the ballet schools because she'll never get in Fiddler on the Roof. And you had to be 18 to join. And
But I decided that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. It started for me because why did it start? I wonder. I went to a Catholic grammar school in Manchester. At the age of 14, I was going to be a priest. They said, do you want to be a monk? I said, no, only idiots want to be monks. I want to be a priest. But then
if you became a monk, then you'd have bumped into Tom Baker.
And then, well, yeah.
You'd have liked that.
All these boys brought up Catholics have become Doctor. It's amazing. Anyway, at my all-boys Catholic grammar school in Manchester, every year they did a Gilbert and Sullivan production. And my two friends in my class said, shall we go along and see what it's like? So we went along and see what it was like. And I found myself playing Yum Yum. No, not Yum Yum. Phyllis, sorry, in Iolanthe. Phyllis is, for those of you who are not familiar with Gilbert and Sullivan, is the soprano lead. Did you? I bet you were better than me. And I got a review in my school magazine that said, Colin Baker threw himself with great verve into the part of Phyllis and rarely strayed more than half an octave from the note. And at the time I thought that was a good review. So I decided that's for me. And to be honest, I was the shy boy that actors all say they were. And suddenly I was somebody else. And being somebody else was okay. Because, you know, it wasn't me saying those lines or pretending to be a girl. Not something I wanted to do, I must admit. That was quite nice. I was somebody else. So I did Rose May Bud in Ruddigore the following year. Then my voice broke and I was Pish Tush in the Mikado. And I realised that was something I liked to do, but I had no idea of how to do anything more about it. And I went with my mother to see a production of The King and I at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. It was an amateur production done by the North Manchester Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society. And at the end of watching it, was rather good actually. At the end of it, I said to my mother, oh, I'd love to do something like that. And the man sitting in front of me turned around and said, well, young man, I am the president of the North Manchester Amateur. Come along to the Simpson Memorial Hall. Next Friday night, come and join us. And I went to the Simpson Memorial Hall, which had an H in front of it actually, I didn't realise it. In Manchester. I was doing 3 or 4 plays at the same time at one point. And then I thought, actually I don't like this law stuff. I'm going to have a go. And that's how it all started.
There you go. So we're going to throw it out to the audience now, guys. So if you've got a question, put your hand up, please, and we'll come round to you. In fact, there's one straight up here, so we'll come to you first.
What's the scariest part of anything while you were shooting? What's the scariest character in Doctor Who?
For me, the scariest character was Sophie Aldred. No, it wasn't. It was, sorry, I've got you on the brain. No, it was Anthony Ainley who played the Master. Now, he was really scary because he really said one day, he said, all I want to do for the rest of my life is play cricket and the Master. And that was his ambition, and that's what he did. And he was a bit scary off as well as on.
I think I would have said the least scary thing on earth is the Dalek. Because when you're working with, certainly back then, now it's all done with CGI, but back then you had men sitting inside Daleks on little planks doing that thing. And if you hit something larger than a grain of salt, it would fall over. There'd be a muffled swearing from the because inside there's lots of bolts and nuts sticking out, jabbing into the poor operators. So if you had a scene where, come on, let's run from the Daleks, if you run faster than a gentle stroll, you leave them behind instantly. So working with them was a pain. So I had a healthy contempt for them. Until one night, I'd been up in the bar. We go up there to have a glass of water at the end of the show, calm down. And walking back from there to my dressing room, the shortest route was through the studio, which had by that point just got the emergency lighting on. And right in the middle of the then empty studio, because they take all the set down, was one Dalek. And as I walked across on my own, in this dimly empty space, the eye stalk followed. And I felt pure terror. It turned out that the bloke who'd been operating it had heard a squeak and was inside oiling it. And I was very relieved to discover that, but for one moment, I knew why the Dalek was scary.
I was doing a signing, and I was sitting at a table just like this, and there was a queue of children. It was a children's department in a store, and I was signing away, and everyone seemed quite happy. And then I saw this little girl, and she looked absolutely terrified. I mean, a real fear. It wasn't, and it was really. It upset me to see this. I thought, what's happened? And I looked behind me, and a Dalek had just passed by the back of me and frightened the bejesus out of this little girl. And so I stood up, and I thought, I'm going to help her. And I said to her, don't worry. And I wasn't acting this time. I said, I'm the doctor. You're safe with me. And I went out and picked her up and took her back because, you know, and I realised how terrifying Daleks were. I mean, I knew them the way Colin did, which was, you know, a couple of old men, you know, with, you know, chattering inside. But yeah, they were frightening for some reason. I never understood why, but there we go.
Okay, I'm going to add to the heroic nature of Silvester McCoy, because it wasn't so much a scary monster that was scary or could have been scary, but it was actually what happened to me in Battlefield, which is there was a cliffhanger where I'm in a tank and the water rises like this, and Ace is saying, "Doctor, doctor," like this, and because for a show about time, we never had any time to do the show. Did you have that as well? So right at the end of the day, I ran across the studio, got in this tank. The visual effects guys started filling up the tank with water from this big pipe. It was warm water, which is pleasant because usually they chuck in cold water, so that was quite nice. And then we started sort of shooting the scene. Silvester realised that I couldn't hear anything, so that he sort of took over really. And the director came down from the gallery. Silvester was like doing hand signals to me like this, and yeah, I was okay. And then I was just steadying myself on the front of the tank like this, and I just felt this under my hands. And instinctively, I just put my hands up like this. And Silvester, in a matter of a split second, just shouted at the top of his voice, "Get her out of there!" And that alerted the visual effects guys on the top to pull me out. And I just saw this tank bulge at the front, and Silvester's next heroic action was to shout, well, you ran, didn't you? Everyone ran.
What's the rub?
Yes.
What's the rub?
That was it.
Nothing heroic if you ask me.
I know. I ran up some wooden stairs and said, "Quick, switch off the electricity!" Because there was water in this studio and there was electricity everywhere.
But the front of this tank just bulged out and then burst, and gallons and hundreds of gallons of water and broken glass just sort of rushed out of the front of this tank. and I was very glad that I wasn't rushing along with it. And it was Silvester's quick thinking. In fact, you can see the crack actually on the transmitted episode of Battlefield, because it was a good shot. But you can see
Yeah, they were really annoyed at me that I'd said to pull you out, because that would have really made a good ending. How to get rid of a companion? Yeah.
But anyway, I'm very proud to say that even now, all these years later, I now star in the BBC's health and safety video. How not to shoot with a tank of water.
I think the scariest thing for me was the British climate. Attached to the costume department. Because the two seemed to bear no conversation between them. They were obviously deadly enemies. And my first story seemed quite pleasant. Planet of Fire, Lanzarote, 70-something degrees. Wearing a pair of cotton shorts, and a cotton shirt, and a sensible pair of espadrilles. Fine. That's October. November, next story. Filming in Poole, in Dorset. -4. Same outfit. Not so good. And also they had to put the Spectrox toxemia, which was sort of like a gelatin thing attached to my leg, which of course froze to my skin. So, long story short, apart from being told by the cameraman to someone standing nearby, slap her, she's gone blue, which was charming, I got frostbite and pneumonia. And when I get cold, to this day, my feet will remind me that they had frostbite. Because you get this grinding ice pain in your toes. So I thought, it's only the second story. I wonder if I'm going to live to the end of my 3-year contract. Because there was no health and safety in those days. It really was, you've got to fall down the side of a volcano, you fall down the side of a volcano. So I think it was really just the basic things that I was asked to do and wear were pretty scary, really.
Yeah, but you might have been scared, but we were delighted.
Well, I'm glad there was some benefit to it.
Any more questions, please? Come over to the side quickly.
I've got a question for Nichola, if that's okay. What was it like being in Blackadder since you were in the Christmas special?
It was great fun. I remember doing the audition for Blackadder, and I was at the time playing Honey in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, who drinks a lot and giggles a lot. And I kind of like collecting laughs, like stamps. And so they said, well, we think she's probably going to have some really crazy, hysterical laugh. And, you know, are you into that sort of thing? And I was like, oh, yes, yes, yes. Would you like to hear my Honey's giggle from, you know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? So we had a nice chat about that, and then I got the part. But nothing was like you would assume it would be. You think it's going to be very full of comedy on the set and everyone's going to... It was the most serious set I'd ever been on. And...
serious business comedy.
Yes, it is. And Rowan Atkinson was very quiet and quite retreated, and it was a fantastic thing to be a part of, and especially as the sort of Christmas special has become a sort of Christmas ritual in this country. So I think it's quite nice to have two rather extreme characters to be known for. But it was great fun, thank you.
Okay.
I've got a question from Sam. He really wants the next Doctor to go to the planet V8 because he loves over to know our planet V8. If you could have gone to one planet that's from a different film or like TV program, where would you go?
Oh,
Well, I used to watch Star Trek, and they went to various planets. But I did notice that on these various planets, was the same rock. So I quite like to go and visit that planet, or those planets. I mean, I actually wrote to this rock, you know, as a fan. You know, and it was very rude, it never answered. I mean, you know, so yeah, that planet, I'd like to go to that one.
He couldn't answer, he was stoned.
It's always a different colour and different planet. Same rock, different colour. Great actor.
Well, the Planet of the Apes is a really good one. That would be a fantastic episode. That really would. I'm trying to think. I was a Star Trek fan. I used to rush home from school to see Tomorrow's People. And I love that. And the music, like with Doctor Who, was really quite compelling with the theme. But I can't remember a particular planet in that. I know. I'd like to go and see the Clangers. I think that could be great.
And I'll come with you.
I think I'd probably like to go to that planet where Jennifer Lawrence is. What's it called? The 3 films.
La La Land. I mean,
What's it called?
Hunger Games.
Yeah, I'd go to that planet and give her a hand.
I'd like to go to Middle Earth, that planet. I was in the lobby, you know.
Yeah. You'd already been?
That's a great question.
What was the strangest thing that Anne Gates has given you and why?
Oh. Strangest gift. I was once asked to sign a breast implant.
Once it was installed, or
No, it was one that had been rejected. And I was told it had been disinfected. That was odd. That was truly odd.
I've gone black.
A similar thing to Colin would be I was asked to write my signature on someone's bottom for charity, so that they could have my autograph tattooed onto their bottom. And don't worry, it's not quite as bad as it sounds. They cut the pocket out of their jeans. They had like a little flap. But it's still that thing that to steady your autograph, you've got to put one hand and then write with the other. That was a little difficult. And afterwards I looked and I thought, that's not my normal signature.
I suppose it's good you didn't have to do on the left bucket, Nick, and then on the right bucket,
Bit of a cheek.
I can't think of something that I've been asked, I've been given, but again, asked to sign. There was a convention I was at, and I was having my lunch, and somebody ran in and said, "We've run out of things to auction, and we really want some more stuff." So I sort of looking through my bag, holding my half-eaten cheese roll, and he came up and he said, "This'll do," and he took the cheese roll and auctioned it off for 50 quid. Sophie Aldred's half-eaten cheese roll. Anyway, the guy came up to me afterwards and said, "Would you mind signing it?" So I signed it in gold pen, it's a cheese roll. Anyway, following morning we had a great night. I think it was at those Panopticons that we used to do in Coventry at the Leofric Hotel.
Yeah.
So there was a big cabaret and a big party afterwards. And the following morning, this same guy comes up to me looking a bit the worse for wear and said,
I had a bit too much to drink last night, and I got so hungry I ate the roll. Any chance you could sign something else? And I felt so sorry for the poor guy. I just gave him a photo. But yeah, that's probably the most unusual thing.
I mean, usually the fans are lovely. They give you nice things.
Yeah.
They give you booze and chocolates and biscuits and homemade cakes.
Hint, hint.
And diamonds.
And tickets to go and see the Harry Potter play. Things like that.
I've got a quick question before I go on to the next audience question. Obviously, we've just gone past the 50th anniversary. The 5-ish Doctors. Some would argue that was one of the best things about the 50th anniversary. Can you just tell us a little bit how that came about and involvements, etc., etc.?
Well, it was Peter's grand idea, really. We meet up at events like this, and over the preceding year, we'd all been saying to each other, and Peter decided that he would make a virtue of that. And he had written and recorded a couple of short films before. One was for a convention in America, which he couldn't go to. And he'd made a little film apologising to the people at the convention. And it showed him sitting in his dressing room, in a lavish dressing room in a theatre in London, saying, "Terribly sorry, I can't be with you all. As you can see, I'm doing this play, Legally Blonde, I think it was. I can't come." And as he was talking, the door opened, and in came the actress, what's her name? Sharon Smith, saying, "Peter, what are you doing in my dressing room?" Get out. And the camera follows Peter down the corridor to a dingy little room, which is his dressing room. We then cut, saying, "Sorry about that," and he's in a drawing room with a nice house, fire burning. And he's talking again. The door opens and in comes David Tennant. "Peter, what are you doing in my house?" And he's like that. It was just very funny, and the audience loved it. So he thought, because of the success of that, it'd be nice to do something for the fans that would involve those of us who very obviously weren't going to be involved in the show. So hats off to him. He wrote it. He persuaded various people to be in it, including us. And then we contributed a bit, but in the main it was his baby.
It was.
And he dealt with the BBC brilliantly, because they tried to scupper it half a dozen times along the way, including saying there was too much of us in it and not enough of Matt Smith and David Tennant. And the whole point of it, that was the reason we were doing it. But Peter, Peter dug in.
Because, I mean, we were expecting it, weren't we?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't. I don't think you were.
Well, I kind of thought we would be, that all over the world, wherever we went that year before, fans were asking that question, will you be in it? We hope you'll be in it. And I thought, well, they've got to listen to the fans, but they didn't.
But it's very hard to do a good story with 11 central characters in it, or 10, whatever it was. So I could quite understand why it wasn't an hour. And I don't think any of us would want to go in and say one line and bugger off again. Probably. No.
What did you think of the actual 50th episode with David, Matt, and John Hurt?
I thought it was a brilliant bit when we were under the tree. Yeah. That was the best bit. That was the best bit.
Okay, I'll throw it back out to the audience again. I'll come down here first.
Have you ever been in another TV program? And if you have, what have you been in?
No, we haven't, have we?
Sophie, my next son down, you're his favourite actress, even though you're not actually in it. It's your son who's at the front of it, I believe. Is that right?
Oh yes, in Tree Food Tom. Is that the one? Ah yes. Yeah, my son Adam, when he was 11, when I first went to do Tree Food Tom, I saw this picture of what Tree Food Tom was going to look like in the final animation, and I said, "Oh, that looks a bit like my son." And the producer said, oh really, because we're looking for a real boy for the beginning and the end to do the opening titles and the credit sequence, and would he be interested in auditioning? And I said, I don't know, but I'll ask him. And I said, would you be interested? And he said, oh, I don't know. And he loves history, and I said, well, the audition's going to be at BBC TV Centre, which is classic, a building that you're not going to be able to go to for much longer, and it's where it's a real historic place where got filmed, and he said, yeah, I'll go and have a look at that. So he went along, and nobody knew he was my son because my husband took him to the audition, and he had to do certain things. And then, bless him, he came home, and I said, how did it go? And he said, oh, yeah, it went really well. He said, I think I got the part. And I thought, little do you know.
Welcome to our
Little do you know. And they'd auditioned like 500 boys all around the country. It'd blow me if he didn't get the part. So, and he was great actually, he was really good. He had to do this sort of dance thing. We went and filmed at Puzzle. I was his chaperone. And now he's all around the world. He's globally known as Trifu Tom. Even though he's now 6 foot tall and nearly 17, he's forever preserved. On his 16th birthday last year, he came home from school and somebody had posted the Trifu Tom thing on his Facebook saying, sorry Adam, and everybody had been watching him being Trifu Tom. Very sweet.
I was in The Hobbit.
I was in something that you can probably see at Christmas, which is the reverse telling of the Christmas Carol, in which I play Millicent, who is Rowan Atkinson, who's really in the Scroogey role. I'm his niece. Basically, I go and take all their Christmas presents away from them. I'm not very nice, and I have a medical warning when I laugh. Kills people and crockery. Other things, you know.
No, I haven't done anything else. What is it? I did a series in the 70s called The Brothers, which has finally been released on DVD. They didn't release it for a long time because it was made in the 70s, and the clothes that we all wore in the 70s are so dated as to be ludicrous. So for a long while because you can do the old Poldark, you can release that because it's in costume drama, but contemporary drama from the period in which it was made often reminds you of the awful clothes you had in that era. 70s and 80s were horrendous. But in their wisdom, they've released it, and I bought it. I actually had to buy it to get it. It was rather good. So if you want to see what I was up to 14 years ago, when I was voted the most hated man on television, playing Paul Merrily and the Brothers, now's your chance.
This is for all of you specifically. Do you have like a program or television program or something that you yourself have like I suppose like us Whovians and that we're quite like mildly obsessive to a certain extent, but that you really like? This is for like for all of you guys, something that you like when you was younger, and you still kind of like you have like maybe I don't know certain memorabilia you do like. For yourself, something like something that a program that you really liked when you was like younger, to the point like where obviously Doctor Who fans, you know what we're like, so that sort of level of
Mine is Jerry Anderson, and when I was probably about the same time I was doing plays to make the money for Blue Peter, I thought I was Scott Tracy from Thunderbirds, and everybody had to call me Scott, and my mum made me a costume, and I ran around saving things from destruction in these. I remember, I have a very strong memory of that. And then when I was at university, I did a drama degree at Manchester, and the subjects for our dissertations were, we could choose really whatever we liked, and I was considering at one point doing football as theatre, as a theatrical experience. I thought that would be interesting. And then I just one day walked into what must have been a very early sort of science fiction shop up at the Precinct Centre on Oxford Road, and I saw this magazine called SIG, which stood for Super Marionation is Go, and it was all about Jerry Anderson, and I suddenly remembered that how much I loved Jerry Anderson, and inside was a letter from somebody saying, I've just done a thesis on Thunderbirds, and so if you're interested, get in touch. And I thought, I'll see if I can do. So I ended up doing a dissertation about puppets, the influence of puppets on children's TV, and in particular the work of Jerry Anderson. And it was just a very good excuse to think about Jerry Anderson and to research. And this guy, who I started corresponding with, he wrote me lovely letters with little pictures of Thunderbirds in and things like that. And it turns out to be Graham Bleethman, who I now, he comes to conventions and he does a lot of illustrating for Thunderbirds comics and magazines and stuff. And he was one of the first people I went to meet when I did Doctor Who. He lived in Salisbury, and he invited me for tea and showed me, and this is the first time I'd ever come across this sort of memorabilia thing. He had a whole room full of boxed toys from Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and I think he even probably Torch the Battery Boy. It was amazing. So he said, oh, you'll like this, and he pulled out a Lady Penelope doll in her box. It was just amazing, and that was my first experience of real fandom like that. But and then now, of course, I know Jamie Anderson very well, so it's really, it's absolutely fantastic. So that's my experience.
Mine was the Quatermass experiment.
Yes.
From what I remember of it, a spaceship lands on Earth, and then they open it all up, and the smoke, and it was very serious, and it was terrifying, and it was believed to be possible, it might happen any day, and out of it came these blobs, and they stuck themselves to you, and then you became a zombie. So we used to in school get the chewing gum, stick it to our face. We were wandering around the playground, being taken over by the Quatermass experiment.
And it got inside St Paul's.
Yes,
and
yes.
Killed St Paul's.
Yeah.
And Colonel Breen was the guy from the ministry who didn't believe any of it, I thought it was nonsense.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. That was my.
Who played Quatermass? Andre Morel.
Oh, right, Andre Morel.
Andre Morel. I loved that too.
Yeah.
And I was heavily into books in those days, and it was all the Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, all those books. My current one, I'm outing myself as a nerd here. I love Once Upon a Time. Anybody else watch it? It's, and I've exchanged tweets with Lana Parrilla, who plays the evil queen. And I tweeted her, I thought she was brilliant. She said, oh, Doctor Who knows who I am. So we're a mutual fan club, which is lovely. So I think she is brilliant. It's such a, I mean, it's nonsense, of course it is. And I don't know if anybody here watches it, but you know, if the facts don't suit the story, they'll just change the facts. That's great, I love it, it's honest. It's, you know, we're in dire trouble, but there's a man in the next field who has a magic banana. You can get the magic banana. Oh, right, I'll get the magic banana. But I just love it. I think it's enormous fun. I want to be in it. I didn't want to be in The Hobbit, I turned it down.
I was the same, I was mostly into books. I had ballet animals that I would just stare at forever. And I think if I could have collected famous dancers' old shoes that they wear regularly, I think I would have done that. my collections are all like dolls and clothes and really good stuff. But I have to say, my latest science fiction crush is actually Travellers. Have any of you watching that? Yeah, it's really good. And I think one of the actresses that we met, Leah Kearns, when we were in Belfast. She's in it, and I'm really enjoying that. I think I'm only on like episode 9 or something. And I too am a fan of God's Fish, you've got me into it. And it's great fun. And as you say, I think there's of course no actual rules. They break all their own rules.
Lovely character, lovely acting.
Lovely. Yeah.
And they can't, you know, sorry about that. You know that Frozen film?
Yeah.
The two girls in Frozen. I was watching it and I said to my daughter, I said, they've got the two original cast members to do this, it's brilliant. She said it was a cartoon. You're quite right, it was. But they cast two people who looked exactly like the cartoon, which is extraordinary. It was very clever. Gentleman on the front there.
Question for question stroke memory for me for Colin. If you don't mind me saying, we've met probably past 15 years about many times. And can I say thank you?
I thought it was 16 years.
16 years, yeah. Can I say thank you very much at every single signing. I've never met such a nice, generous, kind bloke in the whole of my life.
How much have you paid her?
May I share another memory with you? My father was a serious guy. He's long dead now, and I have only two memories of having a real good laugh with him. And one was at the end of Doctor Who and the Daleks that you did. We both were on the edge of our seats. He was a man in the 40s. I was nearly, well, I won't tell you how old I was. And we just go, quick, get out, Doctor, quick, get out. And we just stopped. And we just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And I have a picture on my wall of your Doctor, and every time I look at that, I'm remembered of that beautiful memory. Thank you very much.
Hearing something like that, well, I mean, it's all worthwhile anyway, but it makes it 10 times worthwhile. So it's nice, because every now and then you get someone come up and say, you're my 19th favourite Doctor. But there's only 12, yeah, but I can think of 6 others who'll be better than you. I'll tell you later.
I'm wondering whether there are any particular scenes that were hard to film, you only realised what was happening afterwards.
I can hear someone talking. I don't know where it is or who's doing it. Oh, there we are, sorry.
I was wondering whether there were any particular scenes that you struggled to film due to it being...
All of them.
Due to maybe being green screen or something, or too many special effects, that you only realised what was happening afterwards, or...
Well, Silvester was talking earlier about The Hobbit, which you were in, weren't you? The film is the
Yes, well, I mean, I can tell you a story about, blue screen, well, green screen. I arrived 3 months after they started filming in The Hobbit in New Zealand, and Ian McKellen had been filming for 3 months, and he was at one end of the studio with photographs of all the dwarfs and the Hobbit, who were at the other end in the set, the set of Bilbo's house. So he was way over there, and they had they invented a kind of a twin camera somehow, new modern camera. And so each photograph had a little light, and so when that particular person was speaking, the light went on, so Ian's eye line would go to that, and in his ear was a speaker and he could hear it. When he first did it, he's always green screen, when he first did it, he wept. He said, oh, because he'd spent 60 odd years being an actor. I'm an actor. I've never, this is not acting. Anyway, when I arrived 3 months later, he was delighted to see me. which in a sense I thought quite interesting because we spent a year and a half battling in King Lear. I was the fool to his King Lear, and most of the time when I came onto the stage in King Lear, he wasn't delighted to see me. Because it was one big upstager thinking, oh God, here comes the wee upstager. You know, so but I was delighted when I got there, and he was so pleased to see me because we were in the same world. He could make eye contact with me, he could see me, he wasn't somewhere over there in green screen while other people were miles away on the real set. So that was, yeah, that was weird. But I worked in Vision On when blue screen, as it first was, came in, and we experimented with it. And we used to do all sorts of things. Had a great time with it. So I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all. But it changed from blue to green because of people's eyes and genes. Because you know, more people have blue eyes and you know, blue genes, and so that's why they turned it to green.
I'm afraid I've got to start wrapping it up, but just before I do, can I just check with you guys, you got any upcoming projects that we're going to be able to see you in, or hear you in, or etc.?
Well, I've just got back from Rome. I was trying to get the job as the Pope, but I didn't. I'm doing a little short film called Beauty, and it's an Italian production, filming in Rome with British actors, and I get to sing a song. So I'm very pleased about that. That's coming up. Yep.
I'm waiting with bated breath for Trev Simon to deliver the final 2 in this series episodes of Strangeness in Space. Claire over there and I, we don't really know what's going to happen next. All we do know is that episode 4 ended on a cliffhanger with somebody with my dad saying something on a sort of on a recording, and so we wait to see what my dad is going to do next. So that's what's next for me.
I just recorded last week a new science fiction novel which has just come out by Al Robertson called Waking Hell. So if you want to listen to a great new novel rather than necessarily just clicking the page or driving to the Space Center, and you want to listen to something, that should be out soon.
A few big finishes, which I love doing, big finish.
Oh yeah.
I'd be in there every single day if I could, doing those. Love it. I did a short film called Time and Again, which is nearly finished its post-production. And there is another film which I'm scheduled to do, but the date's been put back now, Neighbours from Hell, which I play a demon, which I'm looking forward to. What? The Last Adventure. Yeah, I did that ages ago. I've done others since then, but it wasn't really the last. Within my timeline it would be, but a lot of people thought I wouldn't be doing any more Big Finish because I'd had my last adventure. Failing to remember that all the other Doctors have also regenerated and are still doing it, so yes, I'm still doing it. And I hope you will continue to enjoy listening to them and supporting Big Finish, because, you know, you guys are the ones who keep it going. And the more people, I'm sure none of you would do it, that pirate them or copy them and lend them to their friends, the less likelihood there is of Big Finish surviving. So please spread the word.
I'm sure we will do it. Ladies and gents, please give a huge round of applause.